Well, no such thing as a clean getaway in corporate culture and conduct. The ASX this month littered with the train wrecks of bad behaviour dealt with badly. When it's people and culture strategies, you need the people and culture master, Joydeep Hor. He joins us live out of Sydney. Joydeep, always a pleasure to have you on the program. As we say, we're littering you with questions about this at the moment because it is so huge at the moment in the market. Cleanaway, the latest to, I guess, cop heat from the market as expected. What is your take on this? Because this isn't to do with sexual harassment. This, of course, is more to do with culture and perhaps bullying in the workplace to an extent. What do you make of the latest?
Hear the outcome of a process and things that would have no doubt led up to that particular process without hearing all of the intricacies as to what was involved in terms of the making of complaints. I think what we can safely assume is that there were some questions asked as a result of the resignation of a senior executive about the style and perhaps behaviours of the CEO of the organisation in question. I wouldn't be surprised if, as part of the inquiries made by the board, it came out that there were a number of people who would have made complaints or had concerns or raised issues about matters of style and behaviour, and that's how we find ourselves reading what we read and knowing what we know, that there's been a slap on the wrist and a recognition that that particular CEO is going to have to go through some pretty intense behaviour modification. It's an interesting point, Ingrid, in terms of the issue of bullying as against the one of sexual harassment, which is always something that carries with it a higher level of salaciousness. But it's really important that organisations understand that the moment you open the door for questions and criticisms around bullying, it's a far more nebulous concept, because really what is and isn't bullying is far more misunderstood and a lot more grey, if that was even possible, than something like sexual harassment, notwithstanding that sexual harassment has that salaciousness element to it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. It is more subjective. I mean, it's pretty objective when you look at sexual harassment, whether or not, something's been committed. But when you look at, as you say, bullying, it is subjective, of course. So how is this dealt with in the workplace? I mean, is it more dealt with internally? When you look at something that's happening with Cleanaway, is it implicit in the culture? I just wonder, how do you get around that grey area?
So the actual legal definition of bullying, and it's important to understand that there is a legal definition of bullying. That the Fair Work Act in Australia allows for someone who feels that they are being bullied at work to make an application to the Fair Work Commission, for that commission to make an order to stop that person from being bullied at work. And the legal definition talks about the conduct having to be repeated, having to be unreasonable, and critically, having to create a risk to someone's health and safety. When you look at that definition, it's a very high threshold. And in my experience dealing with this every day of the week, the vast majority of organisational and corporate complaints that are made around bullying do not and will not satisfy that legal definition.
Yeah, because Joydeep, if you look at someone who, say, isn't very good at their job or not doing a great job, and persistently being told that and persistently being given criticism, I guess, in that sense, that doesn't necessarily constitute bullying, does it? I mean, maybe I'm just trying to understand that part of it.
Yeah, that is not bullying, and the legal definition actually carves out performance management and reasonable management action, so long as it's carried out reasonably, from that definition of bullying. But the thing for organisations is this, Ingrid, it is that if someone is complaining about bullying, it's usually because they're not happy about something that is happening to them at work. And for the organisation, you've got a problem there where the legal definitions are met or not met. And this is really what organisations are struggling to manage. How do they get people to deal with situations where they're unhappy or even seriously aggrieved, knowing that they don't actually have a strict legal claim? And this is something that organisations just have to find a way to educate people better, get people to ventilate in a more constructive way when they're not feeling great about certain things, because the allegations and the word, whether it's sexual harassment or bullying, something that organisations get very scared by.
Joydeep, just changing tact slightly, now we're at a stage where a lot of corporates out there are now starting to go and return their staff to their offices and their workplaces rather than working from home. Are there any issues that could potentially arise from this transition back to the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. When all of this first happened in terms of employees being directed to work from home, I think there was far greater acceptance that was something that was required. Now the view of management and employers is mixed on that particular issue. And that's a separate conversation in itself. But understandably, there'll be some leaders who will be of the view that It is time, it is safe for people to be working from the workplace. That is the employer's prerogative. Certainly in states outside of Victoria at the moment, they're entitled to push that line a little bit harder than what they might have been before. But yes, there will be fallout, because a lot of employees will be of the view that either, rightly or wrongly, they might consider it unsafe, whether it's the transport issue or whatever else. But a lot of them will be of the view that, well, I consider that I've been doing my job very well from home over the last few months. Why do I need to go back to work? And this will be the subject of debate, discussion, and dare I say it, more complaints of bullying when people feel that they're not getting their way.
And there's a lot of people with situations, every situation is very different when it comes to the workplace. There's people who perhaps have vulnerable family members or vulnerable people in their home. How should that be taken by an employer?
Well, I think best practice in employment relations is always trying to understand, first and foremost, what are the particular circumstances of your employees, recognising, as you say, that every employee is different, their situation needs are going to be different and will differ over a period of time. However, employers also have the challenge of ensuring that they are being consistent across a diverse workforce, and sometimes you can't always bend over backwards to accommodate the needs of your employees, but whatever that can be done to get to that middle ground of compromise is always worth exploring.
So much to sort of digest, I guess, during COVID. Joydeep, we love having you with us to talk us through all the issues that are rising. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.